What does it look like to rush towards destruction? This is the ultimate end of all those who are outside of Christ, and some people outside of Christ rush faster than others. Today we'll see an example of those who literally physically rush towards destruction and set ourselves up to see the end of those people. This is Eric Slay with the UWM Pen Guy, and this is the Bible Comment. As always, if you liked what you're seeing, I ask that you hit like and subscribe in order to help the channel grow. And now, without further ado, let's get into the Word. So today we're going to go through Joshua 8:14 through 17 to see the onrush of the enemies of God to their own doom. So let's read verses 14 and 15. And then 14 is kind of a connector verse. I kind of covered it last time too. And as soon as the king of Ai saw this, he and his people, the men of the city, hurried and went out early to the appointed place towards the Arabah to meet Israel in battle. But he did not know that there was an ambush against him behind the city. And Joshua and all Israel pretended to be beaten before them and fled in the direction of the wilderness. So the context here is that Joshua has stationed a division, essentially, of troops as a feint to draw the people out of the city. And this is the stratagem. This is definitely classic military tactics. And you can see then, beginning in verse 14, that this king runs eagerly to his own doom. There are so many principles that parallel this, where the basic principle is found in Romans chapter 1, where it says that God gave them up to their own wickedness. Gave them up, gave them up, gave them up. God does not have to actively force his enemies to oppose him. He simply lets them go and do what is naturally in their own hearts. Now, today this is in some cultures especially, this can be a very tricky sort of thing to piece out, because the influence of the gospel throughout certain swaths of the world has altered the culture enough that there are people who aren't professing Christians who kind of act like Christians because they've been so heavily influenced by a gospel-based value system. And we can continue to cover this in the future, but just to drop that idea here now, it's interesting in verse 15 to note that they pretended. Now, this is not a violation. It is a form of deception, but it's not a violation of the command that you shall not lie or bear false witness, because this is a stratagem, and it's important to recognize legalistic distinctions can create great stumbling blocks over which it is possible to stumble. Paul says that the Jewish people in his day, the Pharisees mainly, the leadership, Paul said that the leadership in Israel in his day had a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge. And Jesus said that they tithed the mint and the cumin and did all the little details, but missed what was essential. What was essential there was the weightier matters of the law: justice, mercy, and compassion. And in Paul's reckoning, it was Jesus as the fulfillment of messianic prophecy. And what's important here is that God was defeating his enemies, and he was commanding his people to walk by faith. And the technicalities of whether this was a lie or not are kind of a non sequitur, a secondary issue that doesn't matter. Everyone can recognize strategy is not the same thing as malicious deception.